Hello, hello. I hope everyone's doing well. I have the big privilege of being able to share some Torah with all of you again from the old city in Yerushalayim, from Yeshiva Kotel. And a big thank you to Rav Natan for giving me this opportunity again. And I wanted to try to go into a topic that I think involves something not enough people appreciate, that is something that should definitely be appreciated. So let's get the screen share going. Oh, there we go. So this Chabura, it's called Living in the Time of Nevuah and Looking Deeper at Prophecies that have come true in our days. I think oftentimes for those that learn either Nevi'im Achronim or parts of Nevi'im Rishonim, we'll see that there'll be different prophecies that, and it's nice to read them, but we don't really recognize or appreciate the fact that we are living in a time where many of them are coming true. So I'd like to go through a few that I think are very relevant in our days, and hopefully we can take something out of it. The first one is from Zechariah, and I think not only is it something that's really amazing, but the specifics of it are something that really show how incredible Nevuah really is. We see, if we can look at the English, for I will gather all the nations to Jerusalem for war. Now, this can, just by reading this beginning of the pasuk, it could really seem it could be anywhere. We know that unfortunately there have been many wars throughout the history in Yerushalayim, but let's see what it will talk about further. The city shall be captured, the houses plundered, women violated, and a part of the city shall go into exile. And I think that's the interesting part. The fact that Zechariah is coming to say that a part of the city shall go into Galut. And especially from where I'm sitting in the old city, that seems very relevant to where I am, and hopefully we'll all be very soon. The fact that this is part of the city, because we know that's exactly what happened during the Six-Day War. The Jordanians from 1948 to 1967 had control of the old city. It's very interesting. It's not just a war, but it's specifically Zechariah saying a part of the city. It just seems very interesting. That's what it is. But the rest of the population shall not be uprooted from the city. We know that Jews were still allowed, even though it wasn't so safe. They were allowed to live in the rest of Yerushalayim. It just seems so amazing that this is what the Nebuah is saying, and it's something that we much can see in our days. Maybe not all of us. We haven't really lived in the days, but we heard the stories and we know the history of what really happened. And then, if you look at the third pasuk there, then Hashem will come forth and make war on those nations, as He is wont to make war on the day of battle. Very interesting. Look at that. And He's going to come forth. I believe this is very much referring to 1967. He's going to make war on these nations. And now we have Yerushalayim. I'm sitting in the old city. I feel much like living in the time of Nevuah and living in the Nevuah. Not to show off. I just happen to be here. Hopefully, we'll all be able to say the same very soon. Next one, also from Zechariah. What I think, there's a little story behind this one. About 2 minutes that way from Yeshiva, there's another very big Yeshiva, and right outside there's a big courtyard in the old city. And outside you see, if you walk around there during the day, there are always kids playing outside. A lot of kids playing soccer or tag, whatever it may be. And it's really nice to see. But what I think is super, super nice is if they're playing over here, and on the side there's a little bench. And on the bench is the following. That the children, the boys and girls, will be playing in the squares. And I think it's just amazing to see. That, again, Mamash, you're watching these kids, not just playing in Israel, not just playing in Yerushalayim, not just playing in the old city, but Mamash fulfilling this other Nevuah Zechariah. And to see it with your own eyes, and Mamash can take the learning of Tanakh from the level of just reading to living it as well, and being able to see that the words can really come to life. Next one is from Yecheskel, and I'd like to focus on a specific part that I think very much relates to our parsha this week. We know that there are several nevuot throughout Nevi'im Achronim that discuss kibbutz galuyot, bringing everyone back from the four corners of the world. And if you look at this part specifically, we see that in Yecheskel, Hashem says, I will gather you from the people and assemble you out of the countries where you've been scattered. And specifically scattered, it's not just where you've gone. And I think there's a parallel in our parsha this week. Rashi explains that, and I think it's very well known, that the Torah was taught in 70 languages, so everyone can learn it. And the Sfat Emet comments on Rashi, saying, why 70 languages though? That way, he says, so when we do go into Galut, when we do go into exile, Torah will be able to be taken and scattered out all over the world. Very much like we have now. We have yeshivas and in schools all over the world, and it's very interesting to see. And despite that fact, we still see v'asafti etchem min ha'aratzot asher nefotzotam b'hem. It's amazing to see that again. It is this idea of being scattered, and again, I'm sure everyone knows Shavuvani Ligulam. Unfortunately, that's not on the list. That is the big idea, and it's something that we're living. I'm sure everybody here knows someone that's made Aliyah, someone that lives in Israel that made Aliyah, and whoever it may be. I think it's very special for us to be seeing this too, and to think. What I don't think we appreciate enough is this Shavuvani has only been for 72 years, and we've been in Galut for 2,000 years. So to be living in this time now, how we lived 100 years ago, 200 years ago, however long, 80 years ago even, we wouldn't be able to say this to the same extent. We know some people went before, but it wasn't the same. They weren't coming to the Medina that we have today. I think that's just also something very special that we should be taking advantage of. The next one I think is very neat as well. At the time I will gather you, and at that time I will bring you home, for I will make you renowned and famous among all the people of the earth. And if you see at the bottom, I did the math that the population of Israel is roughly 9 million, I believe. I looked it up. I forget exactly what it was. I'm sorry. Which is equivalent to 0.001% of the global population. But it's so amazing to see the impact that such a tiny country has had in terms of everyone has moved it. We know everyone not move it. A lot of people move, but I mean ways. Everyone has ways. Everyone, and the fact that you have this country with a population of 0.001% that's so well known to everyone, so discussed, whether for the good or the bad, hopefully more for the good. It's just the fact that it's so well known, and that we have these leaders of huge nations now recognizing Jerusalem, moving embassies here, and whatever it may be. The fact that not only these things are amazing, but that it started out 2,000 years ago from Tzefania, who said it, right? And I think it's very special, just not only what's happening, but the fact that it was already said in the Nevuah 2,000 years ago. If we move on to Amos, I think there's another very interesting one also. I will restore my people Israel. They shall rebuild ruined cities and inhabit them. Looking out my window now, and I think that's exactly what Amos is trying to say. Yerushalayim is built up. After the several times it was built up, destroyed, in the end it's still built up. And I think that's something very special. And it's not just that we have the land, right? If you look, there's two parts to the mitzvah of coming to Israel. One is coming and conquering the land. But that's not it. It's not just enough to have the land, but you have to settle the land too. They shall plant vineyards and drink their wine. They shall till gardens and eat their fruits. I will plant them upon the soil. I think that's very special. It's not enough just to draw the picture, but you have to color it in as well. And that's, I think, what this is saying. That's what we see. We know how strong the agriculture here is. And the fact, again, not just, I think it's two parts to the amazingness of this. The one is the action of itself. And the number two is the fact that it was already known so long ago, in the lowest of lows, in the times of Am Yisrael, the fact that we still knew that Hashem still told us that it was going to happen, that Amos still told us that this was going to happen. Now, this one I think we have to look a little closer at in Yeshayahu. The English doesn't really give us a hint, but the Hebrew does, and I bolded it. The English says, "In that day, my Lord will apply His hand again to redeeming the other part of His people." So, what is this again? I think the Hebrew makes it more clear, because Bayom Ahu Yosif Hashem Shenit Yado, a second time. What is the second time? We know that when Yeshayahu lived and gave these nevuot, it was after the first Galut, and when we were in Babylon. So what is the second time? We know the first time was in the days of Ezra and Nehemiah, when the second Beit HaMikdash was built. So I think we could say that now is Shenit Yada. It's the second time that Hashem's going to bring His hand and bring us to Him. I think that's amazing also to see. It's not just He's going to bring us back, because just bringing us back could have referred to then, could have referred to the times of then when we had the second Beit HaMikdash. But the fact that the Nevuah specifically says it's the second time that it's going to happen, I think that's really amazing. And it just allows us to believe and have a strengthened belief of it as well, rather than saying, oh, we know it, but who knows really if it means now or it's still 2,000 years ago during the time of the second Beit HaMikdash. No, I think it's very special that it says the second time, and that's really when we are living. And then for the next one, I'd like to take a second. This isn't so much a positive nevuah, but of course, unfortunately, there are several of these scattered across Nevi'im Achronim as well. What really is the reason that we went into nevuah in the first place? We see, and it's very explicit at the beginning of Yeshayahu. He lays it out right away. This is the very beginning of Nevi'im Achronim, and Yeshayahu wastes no time telling us what Am Yisrael's mistake was. Like in English, I reared children and brought them up, and they have rebelled against me. An ox knows its owner, a donkey knows its master, and Am Yisrael does not know who my people, and Israel does not know my people takes no thought. And so he compares us to an ox. An ox knows its owner and follows its command. But Am Yisrael, we did not understand, and that may be why we were allowed the Beit Mikdash was destroyed. We were sent to Galut. That's what the next part is. Information. We just don't understand. Look at everything we're being called ultimately. People laden with iniquity, and depraved children, and brood of evildoers, right? And they've forsaken Hashem. I think it's very clear the mistakes we've made. And if you saw last time, I used this quote from Malachi as well, this pasuk from Malachi. But I think it's very relevant. So what is the answer? We saw these bad things. We understand that nevuot, thank God, have already begun happening. What's the answer to having more? Having more of the big ones, the Beit Mikdash, the full Gula, where we could all come to Eretz Yisrael. What is it? I think it's very, very well put in Malachi. Malachi is the last sefer in Nevi'im, and this is the last parak in Nevi'im. And I think the question ultimately on Nevi'im Achronim could be, so what? You're telling me all these things, so what? Just why don't you just tell me how to do it? In the very last parak, we find out how. And I think the words are very powerful and also a very good Eitan Katz song. Shuvu alai wa shuv alechem. Return to me and I will return to you. By doing what Hashem wants, He'll ultimately do the same for us. And I think there's a very important message that we can take, especially during these days, during the 3 weeks, when the country is a little bit on its head about what our role should be and how we should do our role, and the great success that could come with our role. And I hope we were able to learn something from this, whether just a nice nevuah that you can now hopefully share and continue sharing with others. Hopefully the point of learning for everybody isn't just to learn, but to be able to share it as well. Lil mod, lil lamed. And hopefully we can ultimately learn and begin to appreciate the idea of nevuot and how they're not just simple words written in a Tanakh somewhere in our locker, but they're really things that really do come true. And they are very special. And it's up to us to further bring them. And the way of doing that is shuvu alai, to return to Hashem and recognize His will. And by ultimately fulfilling His will, He'll be fulfilling it. Shabbat shalom to everybody.